Hi, my name is Deborah Nel. I'm an adjudicator and I'm here to give you some tips and tricks to help you shine at the eisteddfod. Let's talk about chain storytelling. I love chain storytelling because it allows you to be creative and spontaneous, which is always fun for us as an adjudicator to watch. So, what happens with chain storytelling is you're given a title or the first sentence of a story. And with your group, which is usually 3 or 4, but it can be up to 5 or 6 people in your group, you begin telling the story. You then pause, and the next person continues with the story. They then pause after a few sentences, and then the next person continues until the last one finishes off the story. The important thing here is to be as creative as possible. And when you are planning, don't tell the whole story. You don't have time. Plot your story. Think about what's going to happen next. Always remember, where does your story happen? Who is in your story and what happens? If you can remember those 3 W's, you will create a good story because you will create an interesting setting, you will have amazing characters, and something exciting will happen. Stories need a climax. They need something to go wrong. They need a bad guy to come in and cause trouble. Something has to happen to make your story exciting. Think of Little Red Riding Hood. If the wolf did not appear on the scene and she just went and delivered cookies to Granny, it would be a very boring story. You need something exciting to happen. There needs to be a climax. The climax is the most exciting part of the story. So when you're planning your story, you need to decide the first person is going to introduce the story and maybe create the setting. The second person is going to introduce the main character who is often the hero of the story. Maybe the third person is going to introduce the antagonist, which is the person that causes the trouble, or is going to introduce the situation that is the problem that the hero needs to overcome. And then finally, the last person needs to bring the story together and give a conclusion. So, depending how many people there are in between, you can even have a little subplot happening, or they can share the exciting parts or the subplots of the story. Remember, you don't have time to practice the actual story. You only really have time to prepare and outline your story so that you are all sure about who is covering which part. The next exciting thing is, please, if you can, use voices. What do I mean by that? Well, there's indirect speech where you say, the wolf asked Little Red Riding Hood where she was going. That's indirect speech. Direct speech says, the wolf said, Little Red Riding Hood, where are you going? You can see when you use direct speech, it's much more exciting. So try to voice your characters and let them say something inside your story. Remember to be as creative and imaginative as you can. Add a bit of fantasy. It doesn't have to be realistic, but it should be believable. And where possible, don't have anyone die in your story. It tends to, although it's dramatic, it tends to shut the story down and make the story a little bit unbelievable. So rather, have your hero have a problem to overcome, maybe have a person to help them get over that problem, and then have a happy ending or a resolution. The important thing here is that you practice. If you and your friends have decided to do a chain story, practice often. Ask your teacher to give you ideas of how to start the story or the title of the story, and then practice. It'll also help you discover who's really good at introducing the story, who's very dramatic, that's good at the climax, maybe who's good at character voices, and who's good at doing the ending. This is a wonderful opportunity for you to try out your storytelling skills. And remember, all the performance skills that you normally use, your gestures, your facial expressions, your emphasis, creating the mood if it's a scary story, and loads of expression in your voice and face to make it a good performance. The adjudicator is not only listening to the story, he or she is also watching you to see how entertaining and exciting you can make the story. I hope that helps. Remember to keep shining.